10,000 years ago, something happened that would change our brains forever, triggering a decline we're still experiencing today. For millions of years, our brains kept evolving, getting bigger, faster, and more powerful. Then suddenly, they started shrinking. Anthropologists discovered that human brain size started shrinking about the same time we stopped hunting and started farming. But this shift didn't just change how we lived, it began to change our biology, rewiring how our brains would function forever. Although the brain is only 2% of your body weight, it uses 20% of your energy. Now, most people will say that without carbs, your brain won't function, and that you'll feel tired, sluggish, and unable to think straight. But although your brain does need some glucose to function, this isn't the preferred source of energy. Ketones. No crashes, no brain fog, less oxidative stress, less inflammation. Better cognition, better focus, and better long-term brain health. So why are ketones our body's preferred source of fuel? And why do they make our brain work so much better? For millions of years, humans didn't eat 6 meals a day. No constant carb supply, no snacks, no convenience. They hunted, they fasted, and they thrived on fat and protein. Research led by Robert Seymour shows how crucial efficient energy utilization was for our ancestors. Over the millions of years of evolution for humans, our brains evolved to become larger and more complex, demanding significantly more energy and oxygen. Over this time, our brain size increased by a drastic 3.5 times, while blood flow increased by 6 times. This was a result of evolutionary pressures to maximize our ability to think, plan, and solve complex problems, specifically when it came to hunting. This didn't happen because of grains. It happened because of meat, fat, and ketones. Yet today, we're told that the brain must run on glucose. But why? And more importantly, what happened when we made that shift? The first noticeable drop in brain size happened at the start of the agricultural revolution about 10,000 years ago. Instead of hunting for nutrient-dense animal foods, humans shifted to farming grains. Over time, this meant less meat, less fat, and fewer brain-boosting nutrients. In more recent times, people have been told that fat is dangerous, that it causes heart disease, and should be limited or completely avoided. The solution? Low-fat, high-carb diets. People swap meat and fat for grains, sugar, and processed food. And the result? More metabolic disease, higher obesity rates, and worse brain health than ever before. Then came the dopamine hijack. Highly processed foods were engineered to be hyper-palatable, addictive, and rewarding. Refined carbs and sugar trigger huge dopamine spikes, keeping people hooked on junk food. And now, most people have never experienced what it feels like to run primarily on ketones. They think brain fog, sluggish thinking, and afternoon crashes are just a part of normal life. Over time, this leads to memory loss, attention problems, neurodegenerative diseases. Alzheimer's is now being called type 3 diabetes because it's driven by chronic glucose. And it's not just Alzheimer's. Anxiety, depression, ADHD, cognitive decline, all of these are linked to diet. For years, people have been told that these problems are genetic, that it's normal for brain function to decline with age. Back when I used to race dirt bikes, we weren't riding stock bikes. These were race spec bikes with high compression pistons, which meant they needed high octane fuel. I remember one time I used lower octane fuel instead of the high performance stuff, and yeah, the bike still ran, but it wasn't the same. The power wasn't as crisp, the throttle response was sluggish, it felt like it was just holding back, and something definitely felt off. Now imagine if every racer started running the same low-grade fuel. Over time, they'd all get used to it. The performance would drop and just feel normal. And when the bikes started running rough, people wouldn't blame the fuel. They'd just say, that's how these bikes were built. And that's exactly what's happening with the brain. Most people today have never run their brain on high-performance fuel. They've only ever used glucose, the low-grade fuel that keeps them running, but never at their full potential. When carbohydrates are drastically reduced or eliminated, your body now uses stored fat or fat from your diet as fuel. Ketogenesis is when these fats are broken down into something called ketones. Often these ketone bodies are referred to as an alternative fuel source, as these are used to fuel the tissues of the body as well as the brain instead of glucose. But what if this alternative fuel source is actually our brain's preferred method of fuel? For example, beta-hydroxybutyrate or BHB, which is one of the primary ketones produced during ketosis. This ketone body goes beyond just fueling the brain efficiently. It also has neuroprotective benefits. BHB also enhances brain plasticity and can increase the levels of brain-derived neurotrophic factor or BDNF, which neuroscientists often call Miracle-Gro for the brain. So not only is BHB providing a cleaner, more stable source of energy, but it's also protecting the brain from degeneration. But it's not just about the fact that your brain prefers running on ketones, it's also about what comes with it. Your brain thrives on the nutrients found in meat: creatine, B12, DHA, choline, iron, zinc, all essential for focus, memory, and mental energy. And it's not just vitamins and minerals. Cholesterol and saturated fat are just as important. After all, your brain is mostly fat. Personally, this drastically reduces my need for stimulants like coffee, whereas if I ever eat any sugar, I feel like I need something just so that my brain can keep up. This is why what you don't eat can be just as or even more important than what you do eat. Processed foods do two major things that destroy our mental clarity. First, they hijack dopamine. Most junk food is engineered to be hyperpalatable, meaning it spikes dopamine and keeps you hooked. Number two, they create glucose instability. Blood sugar spikes and crashes leave you feeling exhausted, irritable, and unfocused. But it doesn't just stop there. The modern standard American diet is also loaded with artificial ingredients, preservatives, and seed oils that inflame the brain and disrupt neurotransmitter function. And then there are the anti-nutrients, compounds in plants that block the absorption of the key brain-boosting nutrients. Phytates found in grains and legumes bind to iron and zinc, making them harder to absorb. Oxalates found in spinach, almonds, and dark chocolate can reduce calcium absorption and contribute to kidney stones. Lectins can cause inflammation in the gut. And gluten, which is a protein in wheat, is linked to brain fog and neurological dysfunction. So not only are people starving their brain of the nutrients it actually needs, but they're also blocking even more of the nutrients that they do get. The result? Slower thinking, worse focus, and a brain that's constantly running at half capacity. This is why so many people see such great results when it comes to the carnivore diet, for example. Not only are you giving your body the nutrients it needs in the most bioavailable forms, but you are also eliminating any potential irritants from processed foods and plants. But food isn't just affecting your energy, it's rewiring your brain's reward system. Your lack of willpower isn't always about discipline. A lot of what you feel like doing comes down to your brain's dopamine context. Dopamine is what drives motivation, focus, and goal-directed behavior. If you do something that gives you a big dopamine hit, it makes everything else feel harder by comparison. This is why it's so difficult to do hard things after you've already been rewarded. Think about it. What's easier? Sitting down to do focused work after you've watched TV, played video games, or eat a Big Mac? Or doing this hard work afterwards? Most people start their day with a massive dopamine spike, a big bowl of sugar, or browsing social media. You can still get a dopamine hit from doing the hard work first. But when you spike it too high, too fast, your baseline for motivation actually drops below normal. That's why after eating junk food, you feel sluggish, tired, and unmotivated. And these foods are designed to do exactly that. They have hyperpalatable ingredients. Junk food is engineered to hit all reward centers at once: fat, sugar, and salt, so your brain releases more dopamine than normal. And the companies know this. Food manufacturers are incentivized to make their food as addicting as possible so that you keep coming back for more. Because the goal isn't nutrition, it's addiction. So if you want to break free from this roller coaster, cut out sugar, refined carbs, and processed junk food that keeps you stuck in the cycle. Focus on high-quality proteins like meat, eggs, and animal fats that support dopamine regulation naturally without any crashes. But some people argue that food is one of life's greatest joys, that cutting out sugar, bread, and processed junk means giving up happiness. Is life really better when you're stuck on the hamster wheel, chasing your next high from food, only to crash and need another fix? Is life really more enjoyable when you lack focus, can't think clearly, and feel too sluggish to excel in your work, business, or passions? Because at the end of the day, your focus is all that you truly have. Don't let someone else take control of it.